Stars beyond beyond the monolith, monorisu wo koeru katachin. Chapter 3, The World That Watches. 第3章 見つめ返す世界, The planet did not sleep. 3 days had passed since the evacuation was complete. 3 days since the last civilian vessel had cleared the debris field and the storm corridors had quieted to something close to calm. 3 days since the Parker Nation ship had settled into its orbital station. And in all that time the planet below had not once stopped sending signals. Not distress signals anymore. Something different. Structured pulses, rhythmic, patient. Almost like breathing. Princess Parker had been the first to notice the change. She had been at the deep scan array for 16 straight hours, and she had not left willingly. It had taken MIRA arriving with a food tray and a pointed comment about the relationship between caloric intake and reliable analysis to get her to step back from the console, long enough to eat something. "It's not repeating randomly," Princess said, setting down the tray without eating from it yet, her eyes still on the waveform display. "The pulse interval is varying, but not chaotically. It's varying in a way that responds to what we do." "What do you men responds?" Amira said, dropping into the adjacent seat with the directness she brought to everything. She was already pulling up the engineering correlation feeds. "Like it's reacting. Like it's listening," Princess said. Amira looked at the data. She looked at Princess. She looked at the data again. "That's either the most interesting thing I've heard this week," she said, "or this is another case of pattern recognition bias where we see intentionality in noise because our brains are built to find faces in clouds." A pause. "I'm not saying it's that. I'm saying we should rule it out first." "Already ran 3 statistical models," Princess said. "The probability of this pattern occurring randomly is 4.6 times 10 to the negative 9. Amira picked up a piece of fruit from the tray, bit into it, and looked at the screen. "Show me," she said. On the bridge, Mary Parker was doing what she always did in moments of significant uncertainty. She was being very still and very present. Not frozen, actively present. The specific quality of attention that she had refined across more centuries than the ship's historical database could fully document. Receiving everything the situation offered before deciding what it required. The view screen showed the planet in full orbital perspective, a world that had, 3 days ago, been tearing itself apart. Now it turned slowly below them, its storm systems reduced to the swirling patterns of an ordinary atmosphere. Beautiful from this distance, peaceful seeming. But beneath that surface, "Mom." Cassandra's voice came through the tactical link, not alarmed. The specific tone Cassandra used when something important had resolved. "I'm here," Mary said. "The Cyber Viper's deep integration is showing something new. The underground lattice, the computational structures Dr. Mercer identified, they've been active since the evacuation completed, not sending outward, processing internally." A pause. "But the processing is organized around our activity patterns. What we do, when we do it. The Aegis orbital hold times, the Vanguard sweep routes, my own network connections." Another pause, longer. "Grandmom, it's categorizing us." Mary looked at the planet. "Into what categories?" she said. "That's what I'm trying to determine," Cassandra said. "I don't have a complete picture yet, but I can tell you the categories aren't hostile. The processing signatures associated with aggressive threat assessment look different from this. This is," she seemed to search for the right word, "curious, a curious planet." Mary sat with that for a moment. "Keep monitoring," she said, "and keep the Cyber Viper's integration level at 60% for now. We observe. We do not push." "Understood." Mary looked at the view screen one more time. "We stay," she said, to herself, to the planet, to the certainty that had been building in her since the first moment the signals changed. "We're not leaving." The Parker remains in orbit. The decision had not been made dramatically. Mary had simply walked into the command briefing that morning, looked at the assembled senior officers, and said, "We maintain orbit, we observe, we protect, we remain present. We do not abandon what we started here." Nobody had argued, not because nobody had thoughts about it, Amira had several, but because the quality with which Mary said things like this made argument feel not like disagreement but like missing the point. The Parker nation ship settled into its orbital position like a continent choosing to become a moon. This was not metaphorical. The Parker was, by most measurable standards, the largest human-built structure ever to leave Earth orbit. 1 billion people lived inside it, not as passengers on a vessel, but as residents of a city. Cities, plural. The Parker contained districts, neighborhoods, parks, schools, marketplaces, medical centers, research institutions, and all the organized complexity of a civilization that had been built to sustain itself indefinitely. When it chose to stay somewhere, it stayed with all of that. Below them, the alien world turned. Above them, the stars held their familiar in different positions. And in the space between, the Parker maintained its orbit, patient, enormous, inhabited. Introduction. Dr. Elian Mercer. The deep engineering ring was the part of the Parker that most people never saw. Located in the ship's middle mass sector, it was a continuous circular facility that ran the full circumference of the vessel's interior. 12 kilometers of research laboratories, fabrication bays, computational cores, and the kind of specialized equipment that required both extraordinary intelligence and a genuine willingness to spend a lot of time in rooms with no windows. Dr. Elian Mercer had spent most of the past 6 years in exactly those rooms, and he had never once complained about the windows. He was 43 years old, which was young by the Parker standards for a lead researcher. He had the specific, distracted energy of someone whose mind was almost always working on something several layers below the conversation currently happening. Not rude, just not entirely present in the way that people whose work didn't absorb them so completely were present. He had come to Mary Parker's attention through Amira's engineering team, which was where the most demanding technical work on the ship found its way when it became genuinely difficult. Amira had described him as precise, irritating, and usually right, which was her highest form of professional endorsement. "Dr. Mercer," Princess said, waving him toward the main display in the analysis bay. "Thank you for coming up." "The Cyber Viper's telemetry packets are extraordinary," he said by way of greeting. Not because he was being rude, but because, in his experience, the most important thing to say first was the most relevant thing. "I've been working with the diagnostic streams for 72 hours. I think I understand what we are looking at." He pulled the display to full resolution. "It's not ruins." Princess looked at the display, at the underground structures, at the geometric patterns that had been the first indication that something intentional existed beneath the planet's surface. "What is it?" she said. "It's a planetary lattice," Mercer said, "a computational network that's been integrated into the geological substrate of the planet over a period of time I can't currently estimate. The construction methodology doesn't correspond to anything in our engineering history, but the function is clear." He highlighted a section of the geological scan. "Every major tectonic node on this planet is connected to every other major tectonic node. The connections are active. They process information. And they don't just sit inside the planet, they interact with the planet. The world's geological systems are part of the network." Amira, who had been leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, straightened slightly. "You're saying the planet is the computer," she said. "The planet is the computer," Mercer confirmed. Silence. That's a significant claim, Princess sighed. I know, Mercer sighed. I verified it from 7 independent data approaches. The lattice was placed, or grown, or developed, I genuinely don't know which word is correct, into the geological substrate at some point in the planet's deep history. It's been dormant for most of that time, and it's been waking up because of us. Princess looked at him. Because of the mecha, she said. Because of specific frequency signatures the mecha generate, Mercer said. The Aegis's shielding arrays, the Viper's neural integration protocols, the Vanguard's kinetic disruption patterns. Each of them is producing signals in ranges that correspond to the lattice's activation parameters. He looked at the display. It's like we arrived speaking a language we didn't know we knew, and the planet is learning to speak it back. Mecha patrol operations. Mary had ordered continuous patrol cycles, not because she expected active threats, the orbital space had been clear since the evacuation, but because the presence of the frames in their operational modes was, she had come to understand, itself information. She deployed them not as weapons, as a continued form of contact. The Aegis, Mary Parker. The white and gold frame moved through its orbital station-keeping position with the settled, deliberate quality of something that had decided where it needed to be and intended to remain there. The Aegis was not fighting storms anymore. It was holding, maintaining the stability of the orbital debris fields that the previous disruption had scattered, providing a consistent shielding presence that kept the larger fragments from drifting into collision paths with the planet's surviving orbital infrastructure. It was, Mary thought, not so different from what she had always done. Holding, maintaining, being the presence that allowed other things to remain stable. Grandmom, Cassandra's voice came through the pilot channel. The Aegis is generating resonance spikes again. The underground lattice is responding to the shielding frequency. What kind of response? Mary said. Organized ones. The spikes correspond to the frequency intervals you're running on the barrier arrays. It's matching your pattern. A pause. And then, adding to it, Mary looked at the planet below through the Aegis's external optics. The surface was quiet, ordinary looking. She could see the curve of a continent, the silver blue of an ocean, the white swirl of weather patterns in the atmosphere. What looked back at her, she could not say. Let it add, she sighed. Record everything. She maintained the shielding position. The lattice continued its responses. And something in the quality of the exchange, she could not have explained this to anyone in technical terms, but she could feel it through the neural link's secondary resonance channels, was not aggressive, was not even cautious, was unmistakably interested. The Vanguard, Amin Parker. The midnight blue and crimson frame moved through the debris corridor at patrol speed, not the aggressive tactical velocity of the rescue operation, but the measured, deliberate pace of something making itself known rather than making itself felt. Amin had developed what he was calling, internally, the sweep pattern. A specific route through the orbital debris field that combined the most efficient clearance path with the widest possible sensor coverage. He ran it every 6 hours. He had been running it for 3 days. On the 5th run, something changed. The storm behavior in the planet's upper atmosphere, which had settled into the predictable patterns of post-crisis normalization, shifted, not dramatically, not in a way that would have alarmed a standard meteorological monitoring system. But Amin had been watching the patterns for 72 hours, and he noticed the upper storm bands were rotating differently, not randomly differently in a way that corresponded with a precision that was statistically improbable to the Vanguard's approach vectors. He said, Cassandra, I see it, she said immediately. The storm patterns are tracking my sweep route. They've been tracking your sweep route since the 2nd cycle, Cassandra said. I didn't report it earlier because I wasn't certain it was intentional rather than coincidental. I'm certain now. The lattice is using the atmospheric system as a secondary output. A pause. It's watching you move, Dad, and then it's showing you what it saw. Amin considered this. He changed his sweep route. A deliberate variation, så aşinelet. Not random, but different from the pattern he had established. A slight detour through a debris cluster he had been routing around. 30 minutes later, the upper storm bands shifted, following the new route. It adapted, he said. Immediately, Cassandra confirmed. Amin was quiet for a moment. The alpha aura, the specific biological broadcast of something at the apex of its category, was present as it always was. Every encounter he had ever had, from predators in the prehistoric world to sophisticated combat systems in the years of the synthetic dawn, had recognized it and responded to it. The planet was recognizing it, not with the threat response that predators produced, with the specific attentive response of something encountering something it found significant. It's learning my combat rhythm, he said. Yes, Cassandra said. He thought about this. Then let me teach it something worth learning, he said. And he began a new patrol pattern, one built not from tactical efficiency, but from the principles of the martial disciplines he had been refining since before this planet's recorded history began. Centered, balanced, expressive. The storm bands followed every movement. The cyber viper, Cassandra Brown. Cassandra had described her integration level to her mother as 60%. This was accurate and also somewhat understated in what it implied. 60% integration with the Cyber Viper's network protocols meant she was maintaining a continuous, active connection with both the Parker's internal network and the planetary lattice's external-facing signals. It was the equivalent of holding a conversation in two languages simultaneously, while also monitoring the grammatical structure of both. She was doing this while running deep geological scans, maintaining pilot channel communication with her father and her grandmother, supporting Dr. Mercer's analysis requests, and managing her own thoughts about what all of this meant. Cassandra Brown did not struggle with multitasking, but she had been finding, over the past 72 hours, that the task she was most focused on was not any of the technical ones. She was focused on the planet, not analytically, not instrumentally. There was a quality to the signal exchange that was coming through the Cyber Viper's neural link, a secondary register below the frequency channels of pure data that she kept returning to because it was unlike anything in her experience. It felt like being looked at, not with the hostile attention of a threat assessing a target, with the patient, curious attention of something that had encountered something new and was taking its time understanding it. It's cataloging us, she had told her grandmother. But cataloging wasn't quite right, she thought now. Cataloging implied passive recording. The lattice was not passive. It was engaging. She pulled up the comparison data on her secondary display, the waveform outputs from the lattice over the past 72 hours. The earliest samples had the character of an automated system running initial processes. The most recent ones were something different. They had the character of a response. Dr. Mercer, she said through the bridge link, I'm sending you something. The waveform comparison from the past 12 hours versus the first 24. Tell me what you see. 15 seconds. Where did this come from? Mercer said. I've been logging it through the Cyber Viper's deep integration feed. This is Cassandra. His voice, always precise, had taken on a different quality. These aren't just responses to stimulus. The second waveform set has structural properties that are generative. The lattice isn't repeating our signals back. It's constructing variations on them. Which means which means it's not just recording what we do, it's building a model of why we do it. A pause. And then exploring what else that model might imply. Cassandra looked at the waveform display for a long moment. It's thinking about us, she said. Yes, Mercer said. She had known this in some intuitive register for the better part of the past day. Hearing it said out loud changed the weight of it. She opened the channel to Mary. "Grandmom," she said, "we need to talk." The observation bloom. The scientists on the Parker's research decks had begun calling the orbital zone the observation bloom. The name had started as a notation label in Dr. Mercer's research logs and had spread through the engineering and science teams with the organic inevitability of a term that captured something real. It wasn't official. Mary had not endorsed it. But when someone on the bridge said the bloom readings, everyone knew what they meant. The observation bloom was the pattern of interactions that had developed between the Parker's mecha operations and the planet's lattice system. Not a region of space, a dynamic, a relationship between what the Parkers did and what the planet did in response. Amira had mapped it. This was what Amira did when she encountered something that made her nervous. She mapped it. She built the complete, precise, unsentimental picture of what it was and what it implied. This was not because she was unfeeling. It was because Amira Campbell had a specific philosophy about information, which was that clarity was a form of protection and that the most reliable way to manage something difficult was to understand it completely. "Look at this," she said to Princess. They were at the analysis bay, her data map on the primary display. The lattice response shifts based on which frame is active. Aegis interactions produce this pattern. She highlighted a frequency band. Vanguard interactions produce this one. Cyber Viper integrations produce this. Each one was distinct. But when all three are active simultaneously, the combined output is not additive. It's multiplicative. The planet doesn't just sum the three signals, it synthesizes them. Princess studied the display. "It's treating them as a unified system," she said. "It's treating us as a family," Amira said. Then she stopped, because this was not the kind of thing she normally said. And she stood with the discomfort of having said something true that she hadn't fully intended to say. Princess looked at her. "That's a remarkable observation," Princess said, with the kind of warmth that was very specifically Princess Parker's warmth, present, genuine, and offered without pressure. Amira picked up her data tablet and looked at it. "It's a structural observation," she said. "The lattice is responding to us as a collective signal, not as individual ones. The family signature, the specific combination of mecha interaction patterns, communication channel frequencies, biological neural link resonances, is more than the sum of its parts to whatever is processing it down there." "Amira," Princess said. "What?" "You don't have to make it purely technical to make it worth saying." Amira was quiet for a moment. "I know," she said. "I'm working on that." A conversation across the silence. Mary convened the senior team in the observation deck, the large curving room at the Parker's forward section where the outer view screen gave the clearest, most expansive view of the space around them. Below, the planet. Above, the stars. Around them, the billion-person nation ship that carried their home and their responsibility. Present, Mary, Amin, Princess, Cassandra, Amira, and Dr. Mercer. "I want us to think through this together," Mary said. "Not to reach a conclusion immediately, to understand what we're in." She looked at each of them. "Dr. Mercer, start with what you know with confidence." Mercer set his data pad on the table. "The lattice is real," he said. "It's planetary scale geological substrate computational architecture. It's been dormant for a period I cannot currently estimate, but which is certainly measured in geological time. Millions of years at minimum. Its activation is directly linked to the mecha's operational signatures. It is currently in a state I would describe as active learning. It is building a model of us, and it is becoming more sophisticated at that modeling with each cycle. What are the implications? Mary said. Unknown, he said. We don't know what the model is for. We don't know what the lattice does with completed models. We don't know whether there are other lattices on other planets, in other systems, that might be connected to this one. He paused. We know very little, but what we know is significant. Mary looked at Amin. Tell me what you've observed, she said. The planet learns faster than I expected, he said. It adapted to my pattern change in 30 minutes. It's now anticipating my route variations before I complete them. He was characteristically economical with his words. It's not threatening, but it's intelligent, and it responds to the alpha aura. To you specifically, Princess said. Yes, the storm patterns track the vanguard, because I'm in the vanguard. The adaptation rate is faster when I'm piloting than when the frame runs automated sequences. It distinguishes between the two. It knows the difference between a person and a program, Cassandra said. It does, Amin confirmed. Mary looked at Cassandra. Tell me what you feel, she said. Not what you know, what you feel. This was the thing that Cassandra found specific to her grandmother, the willingness to ask for feeling as information, not as something separate from analysis. I feel observed, Cassandra said. Not uncomfortably, but completely. Whatever is looking at us through the lattice is not looking at the surface. It's looking at what's underneath. She paused. I think it's looking at who we are, not just what we do. The observation deck was quiet. Amira set down her tablet. It has 3 months of our data at minimum, she said. Our activity patterns, our communication rhythms, our neural link signatures, our mecha response rates. If it's as sophisticated as the Merker's analysis suggests, it's built a more complete picture of this family than most people on Earth have. She looked at the planet through the view screen. What does it do with that picture? Nobody answered because nobody knew. Dr. Mercer's first breakthrough. The breakthrough happened at 0347 ship time, the specific unglamorous hour that genuine discoveries usually chose. Mercer sent the communication to Cassandra first, because it was her data that had led to it, and then simultaneously to the bridge and to Mary's personal channel. I've found the organizing principally, he said. He did not apologize for the hour. Cassandra, who was in her quarters but had not been sleeping, received it without complaint. The lattice is not just categorizing us, it's aligning us to a key. What kind of key? Cassandra said. The lattice has a dormant second layer, Mercer said, below the active computational substrate, much deeper, approximately 3 kilometers below the active layer. I couldn't see it in the initial scans because it reads as geological formation rather than computational architecture, but the pattern analysis makes it unmistakable. It's the same signature, just inactive. What does the second layer do? I don't know yet, he said, but the active layer is organizing its model of us in a way that is progressively aligning with the second layer's structural parameters. As if, and this is my best current interpretation, as if the active layer is generating the specific signal configurations required to wake up the second layer. It's preparing something, Cassandra said. Yes, Mercer said. It's been dormant for millions of years, and we've been here for 3 days, and in 3 days, it has advanced its alignment process significantly. Cassandra was quiet for a moment. How long until alignment is complete? She said. Mercer was quiet. At current rate, approximately 11 days, Cassandra sat with this. Send everything to Mom, she said, and to Amira. And get some sleep, Dr. Mercer. You'll need to be at full capacity when this resolves. When what resolves? He said. Whatever comes next, Cassandra said. The realization. They gathered in the observation deck the following morning, not at a formally called meeting, but drawn there the way families were drawn together when something significant was building. The planet below looked the same as it always looked. The stars looked the same as they always looked. But something had changed in the quality of the silence. Mary stood at the view screen. Cassandra stood beside her. Amin was a few feet back. His characteristic stillness, his presence that was complete without requiring any of the space around it. Princess stood at Mary's other side. MIRA was seated at the room's analysis terminal, running the alignment model Dr. Mercer had built. It didn't need rescue, Mary said. The observation arrived quietly without announcement. Amin looked at her. It was sending the distress signal, he said. Yes, Mary said. And the planet was in genuine crisis. The atmospheric systems were collapsing, the orbital infrastructure was failing. All of that was real. She looked at the planet. But a system that has been dormant for millions of years and activates within 3 days of our arrival. That's not coincidence. The signal brought us here. The lattice responded to us immediately. You think it wanted us to come? Princess said. I think, Mary said, that the signal was a call, the same way we answer calls that we can't ignore. Something down there sent one, and we responded. Cassandra had been listening with the interior, focused attention she always brought to things. She was building a full picture of the alignment process, she said. 11 days, Dr. Mercer estimated. Alignment to what? That's what we need to understand before it completes, Amira said from the terminal. Because we're either 11 days from something extraordinary or 11 days from something we weren't prepared for. And I don't love operating in uncertainty at that level. Neither do I, Mary said. Which is why we have 11 days to learn as much as we can. She turned from the view screen to face her family. We're not leaving, she said, but we're also not going to wait passively. If this planet is trying to tell us something, we're going to learn to hear it. She looked at Cassandra. You have the deepest integration. What would it take to extend the Cyber Viper's communication protocols to attempt direct signal exchange? Cassandra was quiet for several seconds. It would require me to let the lattice structure the conversation, rather than trying to impose our communication format, she said. To follow rather than lead. To listen before speaking. A pause. It's against most of my instincts, but I think it's correct. Can you do it? Mary said. Cassandra looked at the planet through the view screen. I can, she said, but I'll need everyone watching. If the lattice's signal does something unexpected during the integration, if it tries to push the alignment process faster than Dr. Mercer's estimate, I need the team ready to pull me back. We'll be here, Amin said, quiet, certain. Cassandra held the planet's gaze through the view screen. Below them, structured pulses continued their patient rhythmic transmission. A world that had been watching for 3 days, building its model, organizing its understanding, preparing something ancient and enormous for what came next. Above it, the Parker nation ship held its orbit, a civilization choosing to stay. In between, the 3 frames waited in their bays, the Aegis, the Vanguard, the Cyber Viper. And 11 days away, something that had been dormant for millions of years was almost ready to be known. End of chapter 3.